My question is, why can't children vote in the elections?
Why can't we?
Well, I think children, certainly I would bring the age down to 16, because I think at that stage people have learned a lot in life. And I know from my own children that by the time they had reached 16 they were more than capable of voting, and they should be able to vote at 16 years of age. Now I think earlier than that, I think it's important that people take time in terms of learning more and more about the world, about society, about the country, about your town and your city, and then being in a position by the time you get to the age of 16 to be able to vote. But your views, your opinions should always be listened to, and that's why when I was a minister one time we actually created a Dáil na Nóg. We created a parliament for young people where young people could gather and give their views to the politicians, which I think is important because it's all about ideas.
If you weren't in politics, what would you be doing right now?
I'd probably still be a teacher, Danny. I started out in life thinking I would be a history teacher, and I was for about 6 years. I taught history and Irish at second level. Loved it, loved the school, loved the classroom, but then I became involved in political life, and that took over. But I have always loved going back to schools. I always like talking to pupils and students both at primary and second level, because I think it keeps you young and keeps you dynamic.
My name is Dylan. I'm from St. Bridget's National School, Coo, in County Kilkenny. I would like to ask the party leaders, what party would they vote for if their party didn't exist?
That's a very tough question, Dylan. The first thing I would do is I'd read everybody's manifestos, read their ideas, what they're thinking, what their views are. I'd want them to have a strong social conscience. I'd want them to be making sure that we can put a roof over people's head, that we don't have homelessness, that we can give people access to education, free education, and that they can develop to their full potential as individuals. I'd want the political party also to be very aware of the climate change issue and to take measures to make sure we meet our targets in relation to climate change, and that people have access to health and on a timely basis, along with a number of other issues. That's what I would be voting for, and that's what I would be looking for in any alternative parties' manifestos.
Hi, my name is Dara, and we are 5th and 6th class from St. Bridget's National School, Drumcon, County Leitrim. And we would like to know what makes you different to other politicians.
That's a very good question. There are probably many things that make me different. We have some similarities. Politicians do work hard. I think I'm impatient all of the time, always anxious to get the next task done, as opposed to hanging around, congratulating oneself on the previous task that one did. So I'm as committed and energetic as ever, and I think I would be impatient for change on an ongoing basis.
Our question is, what are the leaders planning to do about the trolley crisis? My granny was on a trolley for 2 days, and that is not right.
That's terrible, and that's very wrong that your grandmother was on a trolley for 2 days. That shouldn't happen. I think we need to hire more doctors and more frontline people. We also need to make sure there's proper equipment in our emergency departments, that scans and scanning machines are available to diagnose properly and early. We also need to provide home care packages, more of them to people, so that they can be looked after in their home or in their communities. And we also, I think, have to work with our GPs, our doctors out in the community, to give them greater resources so that they could look after your grandmother in the community. And then we need more beds in hospitals, that we can move people through faster. And what happens is hospitals get overcrowded because people who are finished their treatment can't get a bed elsewhere, can't get other alternative treatments once they're finished the main hospital, and they stay in hospital unnecessarily. So that's why I'm talking about home care, more nursing home beds, more rehab beds, rehabilitation for people who've had injuries but who are finished the main part of their treatment but who need physio and so on. They all need other places to go and to leave the hospital and to free it up for people who are coming in on the emergency side.
Hi, my name's Olivia. I'm from St. Bernard Senior National School. I want to ask the leaders what they're going to do about homelessness. There are a lot of people in Ireland that don't have a home at the moment. This has to stop.
I think it's terrible that children are living in hotels and B&Bs and in emergency accommodation. That's very wrong, and we would build more houses, to put it quite simply, faster. We need a sense of urgency about this, and we need to do this quickly. And we have to provide housing opportunities much earlier for families who find themselves in a homeless position, and for people in general who find themselves in a homeless position.
My name is CJ from School Vida Brooklyn. I want to ask, what are your plans to help fix and prevent climate change in the near future?
In my view, we all have to work together in the first instance to deal with climate change. I would plant more trees. We need to protect our animals. We need to protect wildlife. We need to grow more Irish trees, broadleaf trees and so on, and not just one type of tree. And that has to happen on farms, it has to happen in parks, it has to happen in towns, and that would help us to capture the carbon into the future, and it would make our place healthier. We need to phase out the use of fossil fuels, and that's very important. We need to retrofit our houses. What do we mean by that? We need to make them warmer, more efficient in terms of the use of energy, and that's something that has to happen over time. And I think that there are a lot of things we can do in terms of using renewable energies as opposed to diesel and petrol at the moment. It will take time, but we have to work collectively to do that, work together to do that. And I think all of us, I know in your school probably, you're doing your bit to protect the bees. And to protect other insects and animals. It's all very, very important. And all of us, in Dáil Éireann, for example, I put forward an idea that when there was refurbishment of the building recently, that the park out the back should be turned into a wild area. We should rewild the area, not have this manicured lawn, so that insects and different animals and wildlife can come, and more pollinators and so on to help the bees.
Hi, my name is Sean, and I'm from School Breda Crossmahon National School, Bandon, and I'd like to know, what do you do in your spare time?
Well, as you know, if you're down in Bandon, I love to go to Cormacsherry and to Barry Row and Dunworley Beach, where I love swimming in Dunworley. It's my favourite place in the world. And I love walking the countryside, and walk over Butlerstown and all over that area, back over to Roscarbeck, Ardfield, and so walking, swimming in the summer in the sea, and I have a lovely Bichon dog, Satanta, and Satanta comes with me on all of those walks, and he walks miles with me, my most loyal companion.
Hi, my name is Macy. I'm from St. Finian's Blood Class, and my question is, if you were a superhero, what superhero would you be?
I think it'd have to be Spider-Man, because he gets around so fast, gets things done very quickly. That's what we need in politics in the country at the moment.